Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan here for a all 22 review of the Eagles' last game. It was a 20-10 loss to the Saints that frankly surprised Adam, probably surprised myself, everybody who did the pregame show, and most Eagles fans. A lot of surprise, and it's left the Eagles in a very strange situation that none of us saw a couple weeks ago, and that's to clinch. They need to win in this last week. Most likely, I guess there are some other things that can go on, but really the Eagles, need to win just to get back on track, Adam. I mean, 2 straight losses. That's not what we are accustomed to with this team, and just not playing their best football.
No, they win. They get everything. They get the bye, the number 1 seed, which is what they wanted. As you were saying, that the last 2 weeks, I mean, the Dallas game, you can understand Dallas is really good. I think what angered the fans so much is you just touched on it in passing. They fully expected, as we did, for them to win that game, and it's all over. They could decide to rest their players this week. Well, that's out the door now. And the other thing is, which is interesting, the Giants don't need this game. They clinched the 6th seed. They've been a big surprise this season. The Eagles destroyed them not too long ago, and it's just funny how things went. It's totally not what I expected after that game. It's just kind of amazing. You never know what's going to happen in an NFL season.
No, you don't. And that game against the Giants will be at 4:25 flexed there. So, well, it's never really flexed. It's just there was no designated time, but it will be a 4:25 game, which we like. We didn't want it to be a Sunday night game. Didn't want it to be a Saturday night game. So that means the ITB pregame live show on Sunday will stay in its same slot, 10 a.m. till noon. Myself, Adam, of course, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. Unfortunately, Jason had to miss the last pregame show because his flight from Arizona wasn't able to get back, was canceled, actually. We still soldiered on without him, thought we did a great job, and then he's excited to be back in the mix here for the final week. You mentioned, you can never tell what happens in an NFL game, and obviously what happened Monday night was just terribly, terribly unfortunate. And obviously you and I, we hope the best for the Bills, for Damar Hamlin, and everything involved. And what a scary situation. And Adam, the only thing that I can kind of add to whatever has already been discussed, and maybe that we can add together, is the only situation I can ever recall being a harrowing moment where I was really looking at the players, looking at my own reaction, and thinking how scary it was when Mike Patterson collapsed at Lehigh into a seizure. Don't remember the year. I want to say 08, 09. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that was a very scary moment. Nobody knew what was going on. At the time, I don't think anybody knew of any health problems Mike had. And now it turned out, went to the hospital, and I don't remember how many days it took, but he wound up being diagnosed with a brain injury called brain AVM. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the AVM word. But thankfully, Mike was okay. It took him a while to get back on the field, but thankfully he was okay. But I do just remember the uncertainty of the moment, the looks on the players' faces when they saw Mike collapse to the ground, and it was really, really a harrowing moment. And so you just hope for the best for Damar Hamlin, the family, and everybody involved.
Yeah, the feeling I had, I was on Monday night. I was going back from watching the Sixers game, and watching the Monday night game, and just watching the Monday night game, I had no vested interest other than being a fan. It's one of the few times I could watch a game and I'm not playing fantasy, or just could watch a game of 2 young quarterbacks who everybody loves watching. And I had the sound down. So I had come back after Hamlin was on the ground, and I couldn't tell what was going on, or then he was hurt. Then I turned the sound up to hear what Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were saying, and I could hear it in their voice. There's something bad. I was like, oh boy. And then when we knew it was the heart, I was like, please don't be tried. Please. I was panicking. I was like, please don't. It just can't be. And for us to find out that his heart stopped and he was revived is just, I don't know what to say other than I was in shock. And I remember what happened with Corey Stringer. His was different, but related in a way. He unfortunately passed away.
Sure. And
that was at practice in a training camp, I believe, many years ago.
Vikings, correct?
Yes, correct. Right. I just was in shock. It hit me really hard. I just some of the, I'm sure you have your stories. You mentioned the Mike Patterson. I was not there at training camp that day, but I was at training camp when Marlon Jackson tore his Achilles. Happened right in front of me, and to hear him screaming.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It was on that hard. Exactly. and it took me about an hour to get over it. It just was like, I can't believe what I just saw kind of thing. And then the Leonard Weaver injury, for those of you watch it at home, and for you and I to be at that game in the press box, we're not supposed to react, we're not supposed to, you're not supposed to yell or anything, cheer or anything like that in the press box. But we're also human beings, and our reaction, I know mine was a gasp. Oh God, it looked terrible, and it went up. He went up trying to come back, but that was pretty bad. So I've seen some stuff. Also was at training camp with the Colts. It wasn't Deion Kane. I wasn't there. That was an OTA. There was another receiver who broke his leg when about 15 feet in front of me. So this is real stuff. And then for what have happened on Monday night, I mean, it just shakes it to your core. I had trouble sleeping Monday night. I don't know about you, but I really struggled with it. It was all of us in this country did. It's just and one thing I tell people: be careful when you say players aren't tough. I know people want to throw stuff around when they watch games, and this guy's soft and all that stuff. No football player soft. Never say that. That's just, if you could ever learn anything through this, it's terrible, and it's something we'll probably never forget.
Yeah, good point. It's humanizing. It's definitely reminds you, and sometimes, without when you don't see it up hand, and I actually did not see it real time. I was laying with my daughter, putting her to bed. So you always rely sometimes on the reactions of those who played the game, teammates, because they're so used to seeing guys get hurt and injury. They're sort of wired to just move on and play. You see Josh Sweat left on a cart, and it was a terrible thing for the Eagles on Sunday, and everybody was sort of happy. And you heard Nick Sirianni say, thank God he was talking to Fletcher Cox. They were kind of, yeah, Fletch, I'll be all right. They were talking to each other, and that gave them the comfort that he's going to be okay, even though he's being carted off the field, and then they go on and play. What I noticed mostly in just watching, once I was able to start to watch the TV coverage, is when you see the looks on the faces of all the players, the Bills, the Bengals, the quarterbacks, Josh Allen and both Joe Burrow, a couple of still shots of them. I mean, they look like they saw ghosts. So that's when it's not just like a frack. I mean, that's how humanizing and how real it gets. And obviously the NFL clearly made the right decision to not play that game. And then we will see what they decide to do going forward on the schedule, and all that is secondary at the moment.
Correct, 100%.
Yeah. So let's fast forward. We'll talk about the Eagles here. Of course, I mentioned we will have our normal Sunday pregame show. Your power rankings are out, and I think they're pretty interesting. InsideTheBirds.com, Adam Caplan's power rankings out. And not surprisingly, when you see a team like the 49ers who've won 9 in a row, and I was thinking about this today, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we've always thought of the 49ers as maybe the one NFC team that could really give the Eagles some trouble. And I was starting to look deeper into it. Even though the disparity at quarterback is pretty big right now, because you have an MVP candidate versus an undrafted rookie. The undrafted rookie is playing at a decent level. He's playing at a solid level.
Pretty good level. Yeah.
But you can argue that their set of weapons is right. When you talk about the ability to have Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, and McCaffrey, compare that to Sanders and Goddard and AJ Brown and Smith. That's about as, I don't know if there's even another team. Like the Bills are pretty good, but they don't have the tight end and a running back that those two teams have. And same thing with the Chiefs. That's the team right there that I say, man, you better hope that you get to that quarterback and you turn him into an undrafted rookie when you play them, or else you're in for a real fight.
I won't name the coach or the team, but I know there was there's a coach I was talking to within the last week. He says, man, it goes, I hope our offensive line doesn't have to go against the Niners offensive line. He goes, because that could be a real problem. Now, the thing is, you mentioned Brock Purdy, the last pick overall, Mr. Relevant. He looks relevant, man. I watched a lot of that game against the Raiders. You could say what you want about how bad the Raiders defense is. It's the first game he had to bring the team back, and I was stunned. He's a better athlete than Jimmy Garoppolo. He moves around a lot better than I thought. He's just enough arm.
Yep.
He's not bashful. He's aggressive. I know that he was benched at Iowa State. Okay, that's all fact, but man, he's got some juice. He's got energy, and you're right, man. They're super loaded on offense, man. They could match the Eagles with that. That would be an incredible matchup if they would meet in the championship game.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm not telling our listeners that you put them as the number one team in your power rankings, but I'm also not telling you they're not. You have to go to insidethebirds.com and check out Adam Caplan's power rankings yourself. All right. Also, Wednesday night, this is another big Adam Caplan night on our Discord channel through Patreon. If you're a Patreon subscriber, and welcome to the new ones, you'll have a chance to ask Adam some questions tonight on the Discord service, and Adam does that from every Wednesday 8 to 8:30. Again, you got to be a subscriber, patreon.com/inside the birds, and you can check our, while you're there, you can check out our last Ask ITB live stream that we did last week and answered a bunch of questions from our subscribers. All right, let's get to some injuries before we talk about all 22 film breakdown. The big one is Jalen Hurts, and I know Nick Sirianni is still not definitely saying that Jalen Hurts is going to play against the Giants, but it does seem like, the progress that he made last week, he was out there throwing the ball. He admitted that Gardner Minshew did take most of the first team reps, so he was right that Minshew was going to do that because Minshew had to start this past game. But vibe you're getting on Jalen Hurts for this upcoming game against the Giants?
Pretty good. Yeah. Like we started off, I guess one of the bloggers actually quoted us correctly. So we do appreciate that. But what all we said last Wednesday was, it doesn't look good for him to play this week, but they're going to give him a chance if he could take a lot of the first team reps. And Thursday's practice, he did not. He did work, but he didn't take any. So they knew going in he wasn't going to play. They just wanted this to be the week where he starts testing the shoulder. And from everything we've heard, has been good. So unless he has a setback, he should be taking majority of the ones. Later today is their walkthrough. Last week he didn't participate in their walkthrough. If he's not taking majority of the reps in Thursday's practice, then that's a different story. And then I'd be worried. But based on what we know, this is the trajectory that they were expecting him to take with this thing. So right now it's kind of like what they thought. So we'll see what happens later today with the walkthrough and the practice tomorrow. But it's looking good. He did test it. No issues. What we've heard, and that's good.
There you go. And I agree with you. It's sort of like last week. You'll get a really clear picture on Thursday when you see what he does and doesn't do to really give us our indication. As for Miles Sanders, he did wear a brace during the game. Nick Sirianni even said he talked about, he wore the brace. He maybe would have gotten more carries if he was completely healthy, but just another kind of injury to monitor. This team has not been at peak health, especially for its best players at the end of the year. And you hope that Miles Sanders with the left knee, it's getting better here, and that it's not worsening throughout the week or the season, and that they have to continue to take reps away from him.
Yeah, so I noted on a pregame show that he was wearing a brace in practice. I didn't know. I to this date I don't know exactly what the issue is. By the way, it's on his left knee, and because you it's funny, you had mentioned Boston Scott. Was it on the pregame show or one of the shows last week? You were talking about how Boston Scott, you never know what his role is from week to week.
Yes, the randomness of his carries.
That's
here
it.
And there.
Right. Yeah. There you go. I couldn't remember exactly, but then all of a sudden he played the biggest snap share he's had, 40% of the running back snaps.
Yeah,
I was stunned. Now I know that he didn't have a lot of carries. Maybe it was just a pass block, whatever the case may be. But clearly, and Sirianni admitted it on WIP earlier this week, that that's why Sanders the knee, they wanted to be careful. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see if he practices fully this week on Thursday and Friday. So that's just something, as you said, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that have injuries that you got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and you do wonder if there was anything that happened in the game that also influenced the decision. For example, the first play, we'll get to this later. The first offensive play for the Eagles, Gardner Minshew was sacked on a 5-man rush, and Miles Sanders who has done a better job at blitz pickup, completely did not look functional against 55 on the blitz. And you wonder if maybe right then and there they decided, okay, he's not, whether it's a knee or whatever, we need to get other guys in the game who can at least be more functional than Miles.
Yeah, that was Caden Ellis. Yeah, that was actually in my notes. And I know Ellis has got great short area quickness. That's why he actually technically is a starter now for the Saints. But that was a bad effort. And as poorly as Minshew played, that was not his fault.
No, not at all. Right.
We'll get to the pass part. Because when you watch the game live, you just assume that it was all on Minshew. Was definitely not. He didn't play well. We're not going to sugarcoat it. He didn't play well. He's on a 10-point scale, he played about a 3.5, where he played about a 7.5 ish 8 against Dallas. So yeah, he struggled. There's no doubt. Then Lane Johnson is really nothing new. It's exactly where it was last week. He wants to play in the first playoff game. It's not a lot. We understand it. It's going to be the treatment, how he feels, and the other part about this is no one could say, he can't even say this, how long he'll last if he does play in that first postseason game.
Right.
That's the problem that you struggle with. And we mentioned in our pregame show that our belief was it was going to be Jack Driscoll. And if it would be Jack Driscoll, how would he play? We'll get to that. And you don't want to keep changing. You want to go, because if Johnson can't play in that first game, or he plays and gets taken out and he can't come back and play, and he winds up having surgery, you don't want to be flip-flopping your line in the playoffs. So
right.
I don't know. We'll have to check in as are they going to stick with Driscoll here?
Good point. Now, Josh Sweat, we mentioned him. He left. It looked gruesome at first, but he did tweet shortly after the game that he was better and he's going to be. In fact, Nick Sirianni said he was lobbying already to play against the Giants. And I don't know if he's trying to get him to play.
Okay.
I have a feeling that's not going to happen, but it sounds like he should be all right going forward after this weekend.
Yeah, I've heard that basically, and I get their protocols with neck injuries.
Mm-hmm.
They're all the protocols are the same. Stretcher, cart off, hospital. They have a pretty good strong protocol. They're great at it. They handle players with great care. And no, what we've heard is that the first playoff game is absolutely in play as of now, unless he's just super sore. They'll know over a series of days how he really feels.
Mm-hmm.
But everything checked out well. It's just obviously what's a neck injury scared the hell out of all of us.
Right.
That's
right.
scary. Yeah. So But he and if I watched the play, it was on the first series of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It was convergence of bodies, and he got stuck on the bottom, and he bent his neck back as you saw he was down, and that was scary. But thank goodness he's fine. We'll see how I have no idea. What we don't know is, okay, neck injury is there any tingling? Is he feeling good? You don't know all that. The only thing I knew is that he was pretty good the day after, and we'll see in the coming days. But what we've heard is the first playoff game's in play as long as there's nothing other than the neck. He's not super sore going forward, because you can feel great the day after, but some days you could not feel good. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And even a stinger, if it was a stinger, not that I'm speculating on him, but just in general, players have had stingers. They've been out for several weeks. I've seen guys go on IR with stingers.
Howard.
Yeah, Jordan Howard, great one. Chris Gokong, year one. Yeah, I mean Gokong had a stinger as a rookie that put him on IR. But yeah, okay. I mean, he never even played as a rookie because of that. That might have been phantom stuff at the time, but he did. I did remember talking to him, and he said he was not right for quite a while.
So to sum it up, as long as there are no other ill effects here, there's chance he'll be ready for the first playoff game, and hopefully for the Eagles, that's not until the divisional round.
Right. Now let's get to Avonte Maddox, because this is pretty fascinating. We have reported that he had a toe injury. It involved a fracture. It involved some tendon issue as well of the toe, and that he had a procedure. We know this is the case, but you brought up on the pregame show something fascinating is for a guy whose, outlook is not great to play anytime soon. They didn't put him on injured reserve because you'd have to miss 4 games. And that would mean if they had done it before this game, it would be the last 2 games of the year. And then the divisional game, assuming there's a first round bye, and then the NFC Championship game. So clearly, and you mentioned this, they must have felt that maybe there's a shot that he's back by the conference championship game, because that's why they didn't put him on IR.
All right. So to add to this, he was not on crutches. Was not seen on crutches, we're told, which is really big after toe surgery. In fact, he was in a walking boot, walking normally, from what we understand. So we'll see. But they have better information than all of us, so they clearly did not think, as I mentioned on our pregame show, and I think the preview show for this game on Friday morning, that if they don't put him on IR, they clearly think he can come back. So good. This is actually positive news. This is welcome news.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the toe is sort of considered, I think, like we lay people consider the toe as like not a big deal. You can break a toe and play again. You can tape it, people have, but when you talk to players about toe injuries, they wince. They, I think it was Jason or Quentin I was talking to about. They hate toe injuries maybe more than other injuries. I mean, I guess
Well,
because
turf toe too.
yeah, especially turf toe because they
turf
can be
toes.
really nasty. Yeah,
Turf toes, when you tear ligaments in your toe, it's awful. It doesn't go. The real turf toe is about a 6 to 8 week injury.
oof,
Talking to players who've had it, so
right,
well, I don't know exactly you have the details of what he was dealing with, but I only knew when it happened. I was told it's going to be long term, and it may be 4 weeks or so. But
right,
like I said, they didn't put him on IR, and that's great. I mean, as bad as all these things seemed in the beginning with some of the bleakness. The more that they'd reevaluate and get opinions, it's been a little better. Other than the Lane one is not. I mean, the Lane is
right,
he's admitted he's had this one. The Lane one, unfortunately, is not going to get better. He's got to have surgery. That this has already been decided.
right.
Sweaty's good for now. Hopefully there are no ill effects. Hurts is trending towards being able to play, but he's got to get through practice. Sanders is a minor injury.
Mm-hmm.
Monty Maddox, we just outlined this. There's a chance he plays for the championship game or in the championship game if they make it that far. But here's the other problem, though. When we say that, he's got to be able to stick that bad toe in the ground and push off and run and explode. So let's not put him there yet. He's got to be able to do that.
Right.
Then CJ Gardner Johnson. I know he's been running. We're told he's close. Later today, I'll tell you, I'm not saying he's going to play if they activate him today, but that would be great news. It's either going to be this week or the next. It's either going to be this week he's activated or next week into 21 day, based on what we've heard.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what that means in terms of playing this week. I mean, playing the same week. We do see this with certain players, but in this one, because of the injury that he had in the lacerated kidney, it had to heal completely. He did some conditioning work, but for him to be able to take contact, it had to heal completely. He just couldn't practice until that. So it's looking good. Now the thing would be if he's in the window this week, at what point do you feel that he can play in the game? That's what they have to decide with the docs. And then, of course, how they line him up. Well, more about that going forward, whether it's safety, slot corner, nickel, whatever the case may be. They'll have to decide that based on the way he looks. But again, the injury stuff is not quite as bad as it seemed a couple weeks ago. And that is good news.
That is good news. All right, we're going to get into this tape breakdown against the Eagles offense against the Saints defense is where we'll start. First, go to get your game on at the Gallery Bar Booking Games and Ocean Casino Resort this football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Get in on a parlay while in the middle of a party. Go for the sports scene and go for the endless screens. Go to the Gallery. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, as we tell you all the time, please check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. All right, we're going to talk about this Eagles offense, which was not very prolific at all. You mentioned Gardner was a big part of that, not the entire problem. I know some people have issues with play calling in general, scheme, all that. The observation on Minshew, I think Greg, you had asked Greg during the pregame show about like sort of the occasional Gardner Minshew interception. He doesn't throw a ton, but he tends to every once in a while throw them. And Greg sort of mentioned he has a tendency to drift at times in and out of the pocket. Now that's not what happened on the pick six, but there were times, Adam, right, where you could see, at least from the all 22, maybe there's a guy, if he just pulls the trigger, but he does kind of drift out of the pocket more than stepping up into the pocket at times.
You just hit on it. I don't know why he does this stuff. I think he perceives pressure. That's the term that coaches use.
Mm-hmm.
That's either not there or it's unnecessary. We've seen Hurts he's had obviously a really good year, but there are a couple times did in the Bears game where he would move for no reason. They're both shorter guys. Hurts 6'1", Minshew barely 6 feet. I thought this was the case in this game. I was told it was part of it. Sometimes he can't see. He just can't. He thinks he's got to create space. But you said this over the last 2 years about Hurts. Sometimes he needs to step up, not around the pocket.
Right.
Minshew didn't do that. He stepped around the pocket and he walked either walked near the lineman, his own lineman, or walked away from the play where he can't quite see what he needed to see. There's the term frenetic we've used before for Eagles quarterbacks over the years since we've done the show. This is year 5. He was a little bit too frenetic. He's a pure rhythm pocket passer. He didn't have any rhythm. I don't know what happened. You could talk about some of the pass protection issues. We'll get into that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
The missed on the first drop back, the sack. Second play also was pressure. But that on that second play, I was told they would have liked him, or the person who saw would have liked him step up instead of step around. So I think it all kind of got to him as the game went on, and I think that I just would say that based on what we were told, the pass rush really got to his head, and he just was not comfortable at all. That's another thing. He was not a comfortable passer. Part of it, the offensive line. Part of it, him.
Yeah, definitely. From my observations, and there's just a couple of times when he drifts. Let's say he's drifting to the right side, and there are plays to be made on the backside. Like he's not seeing it. He almost cut off half the field because you've already left the pocket and you're only looking at one side of the field because you're worried about the pressure. And I think there were some guys that were open on had he stayed in the pocket or just stepped up, bought himself some time, maybe he would have been able to see that a little more. So yeah.
One thing I would add on the play caller, and then we'll move on to the rest of the positions. One of the things I love what Andy Reid and Marty Mornhinweg would do when McNabb would struggle, particularly with his accuracy. They would start giving him throws that literally you can make if you're in high school. They're like, just get him comfortable, get him accurate. I would have liked to see those type of throws. Just make it nothing's ever easy, but make it easier. Just get out of his hands quickly, get him accurate. And I thought the coaches could have helped them a little bit in that area. That's something that I've talked to coaches over the years, particularly quarterback coaches. Just all quarterbacks struggle from time to time, even Brady, believe it or not. Just help them out. And that's the one area. No, not running the football more. That's, you could argue, people want them to run the ball more. That's fine. But that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about in terms of dropping back and helping the guy be accurate and get comfortable, particularly when certain parts of the pass protection was not working well.
Right. I agree with you. I thought that they should have given them some easy, quick game to start off with. And again, we've kind of talked about just in general as a philosophy, it seems like the Eagles have fallen in love with the shot play and fallen in love with the aerial attack. And certainly Minshew did a nice job against the Cowboys of driving the ball. I mean, there were some big plays there. So maybe the coaches are so in love with it, they forget that sometimes you got to give guys who don't have big arms like Minshew, especially get him warmed up with the easy stuff over the middle, get him in that rhythm that you're talking about. Let him work front to back instead of back to front, because that's how he operates anyway.
Right. And that builds a confidence. That's what you're trying to do. He didn't play with confidence because usually has that swag. Body language was not great. I just felt like he just didn't have it for whatever reason. I know some people, it's a couple of people were speculating that he wants to be a starter so bad he just didn't have it. He doesn't think he should be a backup. But my point is, folks, that's nothing to do with the way he played. He's not thinking that way,
right? Because
he sure as hell played pretty good against the Cowboys. I know people are looking for answers. Whenever a player that you're expecting to play well doesn't play well, particularly the quarterback, you're looking for answers. Anything that one doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah. The Eagles really haven't ran the ball well for a couple of weeks now. As we kind of move on to the running game, they did average 4.5 yards per carry, but they didn't run the ball that much. But you go back to Dallas, 3.0 a carry, Chicago, 3.4. They did really well against the Giants, but before they against Tennessee, it was 2.8. So really in 4 of their last 5 games, they have not been the kind of running team that we saw at, like prolific running team that we've seen over the last year and a half.
Yeah, I don't, it's not that, okay, like the Cowboy game, Sanders had 21 carries. So, I certainly wasn't going to complain about that.
Right.
But part of it was like second series. Okay, first 2 carries to Sanders. They might have, I can't remember what happened. Something might have happened, like might have had a penalty or something, some negative play. Anyway, too many 3 and outs. That's another thing is if you keep going 3 and out, you're not going to be running the ball very much. But then, of course, the third quarter, they came out running like crazy, and they ran right down their throats. But then they'd have a bad snap, penalty. Remember, they had 8 penalties in the game. One was cheap. One was clearly wrong. But and then I got to tell you though, I was shocked that 3rd and 10 they gave the game well for the touchdown. What a call! What a call!
It was a nice call. Would have worked too. And it should have worked. That was not a hold. We already,
that's what I mean.
We know
it's a ballsy call. I was when I saw him, like, did they just run that? Wow.
I just think it's funny because it's the second time this year we've seen that exact play. One where it hurt the Eagles, called back that time. One where it helped the play against the Packers where Elton Jenkins drove Javon Hargrave to the ground with a great block on an Aaron Jones touchdown. It got called back because I guess the block was too good.
That was
because
I know that bothered you.
Hargrave was
I
not
remember.
held. He was just literally planted in the dirt in that game, and
Yeah,
so was
exactly.
and unfortunately for the Eagles, so was I forget which lineman it was that got planted on that, but I mean, it wasn't a hold. So unfortunately, it had to come back. That hurt them, and then the real penalties hurt them as well. As you're mentioning in the third quarter, all the false starts, the holds. I think that obviously affected the rounding game because the Eagles were behind the sticks way too much, and then you have to pass.
Yeah, and they again, just like Dallas, they came out super heavy to 11 personnel. This is just they want to throw in every game. It just didn't work. Another thing with Minshew before we get to the offensive line, then we'll get to the defense.
Mm-hmm.
There were guys open. He either didn't see them or it was inaccurate. It was kind of what you were talking about a couple minutes ago. He just didn't see them. And he also, another thing I'll add, he also dropped his eyes. I was talking to somebody else. He was I don't know if he was worried about Driscoll at right tackle. Sometimes when quarterbacks drop their eyes, they're worried about the offensive line. Kevin Cobb was like that.
Mm-hmm.
To go really, we've rarely talked about him. That's what kind of doomed him. He would actually roll out for no reason to his right. It was a bizarre habit he built. And Minshew would drift. That's his issue. So this was they're not accustomed to not moving the ball well. They have such a great offense, and they didn't do well. And Goddard was in the block a little bit. Stoll didn't play very much. They were going to go heavy and spread them out. Heavy 11 personnel, but Minshew struggled, and unfortunately, they couldn't take advantage of it.
See, that's the area in retrospect I was surprised at, because there have been some times this year where the Eagles have decided, let's go a little more 12 and let's kind of spring some run and then play action on them. We'll throw out a 12 too to confuse. And this pass defense is really good. We talked about that on the pregame show. The Saints have one of the best pass defenses in the league and one of the worst run defenses. So it felt like it would have been a good time to mix your 11. They're never going to be more 12 than 11, but there have been some games where they've played a decent amount of 12 personnel and then ran well out of it and passed well out of it because of the sequencing. They've had great play calling from those formations, and this was not one of those games. And it sort of goes back to that, well, are they falling in love too much with being 11 and trying to, stretch the field all the time? So maybe they'll kind of reevaluate that. And the one thing Nick Sirianni and I talked about was kind of like beating yourself up. Like when things don't go well, you got to drag yourself through the mud and really see what you didn't do well. And look, when the Eagles lost to Washington and then only beat Indianapolis, a bad Indianapolis team, by 1, didn't play particularly well. They came out and won 4 games. Well, they won 6 games in a row, but the first 4 they came out like gangbusters. You remember there was the 40 points against the Packers and the 35 against the Giants, and then the 38 against somebody else. So perhaps all the Eagles need is a little more Jalen Hurts back, and then a reevaluation, and then things get going.
I give Sirianni credit. He's super accountable. I know sometimes he covers for his players, but they point. See, coaching is about understanding what your players are capable of doing. If they're not, figuring out a different way to do it. Running the ball is not the answer. The answer is giving better throws. I know in this town people want to run the football. It's just not going to. You just need to give it up. It's not going to happen. I used to argue with some people with the Eagles years ago when Donovan would throw the worm burners. I'm like, look, you have another choice. Just run the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Donovan doesn't have it today. Why don't you try something else?
Right.
And then the something else was what I'd later find out was, okay, we're going to give easier throws. Okay. So that was that. So Jack Driscoll, Cosell called us correct. He said, you're going to see Cam Jordan over Driscoll for most of the game. That sure as hell happened. And Driscoll is just, Cam Jordan's a little taller. He's got, his arms are 2 inches longer. I cannot believe, someone told me to watch it, and I watched it on Tuesday. Cam Jordan, for a guy who's 33 or whatever he is, he moves just like his dad, Steve, the former Vikings tight end. He's so athletic. I can't believe how well he moves. He had Driscoll in a pickle. Driscoll got moved back. He got shoved back to Minshew.
Tough matchup, yeah.
Tough anchor. He had trouble anchoring. It was tough. He gave his all. The kid tried hard. That's why I said earlier, you're going to have to do it this week. If you don't do it this week, you're going to have to stick with Driscoll. But I know they don't like moving two guys. Yeah, Stalin doesn't like moving 2 players. Okay. But man, this is, to me, why is Andre Dillard still on your roster if you're not going to use my left tackle, move my line to the right? That's what I would do, but it's not my call.
Maybe they'll half and half it next week against the Giants, just to, because it does, if Lane's going to play, it doesn't make sense to play Mailata at right tackle just for this week and then move him back to left tackle for the playoffs
I
because
get it.
Lane,
I
and then
know.
move him back to right if Lane doesn't make it through. I mean,
But see, that's it.
you just
That's the
gotta kind
latter
of
is
go
what I'm
with it.
thinking. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I just feel like you have to at least go with it. And
Right. But the latter is I don't see how the heck, based on what we know about this Lane Johnson injury, how he's going to get, if they make the Super Bowl, I don't know how he's going to make it. It's just, I know he's got incredible will, but it's your core, man. It's your core. It's a little true. You get your strength from your core. I don't know, but
fair point.
they had some, they had some good blocks in this game. It wasn't like totally on Driscoll, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Mailata had some good protection in this game. It was just they had some timing errors on the interior occasionally in this game, but overall it wasn't a bad performance. Just it's magnified because Driscoll had his struggles.
No doubt about it. All right, we'll move on to the defense in a second. First, we're going to tell you about Mojo is building the sports stock market where you can invest in your favorite players, invest in what you know. You know sports. Turn that sports knowledge into real money with Mojo, the sports stock market. It's all about real stats and real value. The shares that you buy entitle you to a guaranteed payout based on career-ending stats. That means there's no off days, no off season. Share prices can rise and fall constantly in real time based on career-long projections. You can cash out at any time. You can build a portfolio as big as you want. You can buy and sell on your terms. Every play, every game, every season. You can multiply your investments. They got a great multiplier tab that if your guy does well and you had hit 10, 15, 20 times the multiplier, then your investment goes up that much. So the app currently offers NFL players, over 300 skilled position players, including quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Mojo is available in New Jersey on iOS, and just by downloading the app, you'll have a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Click on the link in the description box of this video on YouTube or this podcast for a chance to win that $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Got to be 21 and physically located to trade in on Mojo. Having a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And as we tell you, even if you don't live in New Jersey, Mojo is going to be near you sometime soon in the future. So you might want to get a head start on just seeing how the share prices rise and fall. So download Mojo now and start observing before Mojo comes to your state. All right. As we always go through some risers and fallers. What do you think, Adam? Obviously, it seems like the Derek Carr era is over in Las Vegas, right?
No
and
way
Jarrett Stidham had a 3-touchdown game, 365 yards.
He was amazing.
Yeah, so his share price rose 61%. And again, you're always looking for that diamond in the rough, but it's hard for me to think that he's going to be the Raiders quarterback going forward. So I'm not sure that I'm I would think the Raiders are going to try to get themselves a different.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. I mean, but it doesn't preclude you from buying the shares in it because, well, here's the thing. Let's say he doesn't play well this week. I mean, obviously the shares would go way down.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they need to build with a quarterback. In fact, they were actually going to sign Brian Hoyer to be Carr's backup, but I'm told he wanted to stay in the New England area, not move his family. So what they do, they got Jarrett Stidham.
There you go. One guy who I like that might be a nice riser to invest in now because of the future, because Carolina may get first of all, Sam Darnold's starting to play well, but they may have a different quarterback also, is their second-year tight end, Tommy Tremble. He's up 20%, almost 20%, after having 3 catches for 33 yards and touchdown. We know he can block really well. He's improving in his pass catching there with the touchdown. Greg Cosell loved him, just how his tenacious he was coming out of Notre Dame.
Better athlete than think.
Yeah. So again, maybe a guy that when you get a better offensive system in there, sort of, becomes a pretty good player to have.
Yep, I agree with you.
Well, all right. Let's say who fell. Mike White fell. He was good for the Jets for a while, but
to earth.
Yeah.
He's playing with bad ribs. He's playing with broken ribs. So I mean, you could understand that was a tough matchup on the road. But look, they don't know who their starter is, man. Jets next year. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think that's why I might invest in him, even though he's down 11%, because if the Jets don't get a quarterback, then he will be the quarterback. And they've got such they're building the offensive line and defense and the running game. He might be set up for success down the road.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Remember, even if you don't live in New Jersey, you can get Mojo any state you live in. You can download it and start looking at how those share prices rise and fall on a weekly basis. All right, let's talk about the Eagles defense against the Saints offense. Now, I'm really conflicted on the first series. sort of, I can understand people being annoyed. We'll get to what kind of intel you got on it, Adam, but there were a couple of third downs that the Saints converted to keep that drive alive. And I will say the Eagles did not play the same coverages on all third downs, and they blitzed on one of them. That was a bad blitz. I didn't like the blitz at all. It was the second third down. They dropped a lineman and they blitzed TJ Edwards. It was really only a 4-man rush, so maybe it's not a blitz, like a zone blitz, but you were trying something new there, and it didn't work. But like when I look at why those passes were completed, I felt like the matchups favored the Saints. They put Olave in the slot twice, and that Olave is usually better than who he's going against. He's a good player.
Yeah. So what happened in the first series, and then it got much better when we won the linebackers in the second. Just to touch on the D line briefly here.
Mm-hmm.
So Sweat got hurt in the first series. Patrick Johnson and Brandon Graham replaced him.
Right.
Jordan Davis played early on quite a bit. He had one really good play where he used his length and didn't get stood up. He actually made a tackle on it. Just going by what I was told, the person I spoke with said he's pretty impressed with the way he used his hands, and because you know how many times he's got stood up repeatedly this season, which is a no-no.
Yeah.
But now, was it always good? No, but at least he saw some improvement. His ankle was clearly much better. They played a lot of one high on the first series. Excuse me, two high. I'm sorry, they played two high.
Right.
Two high
right.
First series. They had trouble with the Saints' power of their offensive line on the first series. It was kind of an adjustment. The one issue that people have with Gannon, we outlined it last year every week, and it was clearly not very good. But this year, he's done a very good job. But the one issue people have with him, sometimes he's slow to adjust. Like if you're not doing well in one coverage, change it up.
Right.
Try to go with too high. What they want to do is, though, they also played a lot of 5 and 6 defenders in the box. They were trying to take away Kamara's cutback, and they did a good job of that. Kamara did not kill them like some people were concerned about. In fact, the unbelievable thing, I have no idea why they did this. I know Dalton only threw the ball 22 times. They ran it a lot, but Kamara had one pass target. Like, I don't know what it is against these teams that play the Eagles. Why would you not test your linebackers?
I don't know, and especially because for as well as they were playing early on, we've talked a little bit about Kaiser White, and coverage has not been as good lately. And then the first third down conversion was they were in a man match concept there, and it was Juwan Johnson against Kaiser White, and Juwan beat Kaiser White. Now that's also a tough matchup because Juwan can run and he's got a tall body. And but to your point, I don't know why they didn't throw it to Kamara more than they did. And what was the longest play for them on the ground was 15 yards. That was one run. And
Benjamin.
Right.
Yeah, he actually should have scored. Blankenship made a great tackle. He would have scored. Benjamin made a tremendous second run, a jump cut.
Right.
If you're watching this on YouTube, he went straight and then cut. I mean, he made him miss. It was great. And Blankenship was the last man standing, just got his ankle, would have had a touchdown. So they got pressure. Dalton helped them by holding onto the ball. They collapsed it. The Eagles started. What happens typically with this defensive line, if they don't get you early, they're going to get you as the game progresses. And they sure got him. And he helped him a little bit, but they got tremendous pressure, I thought, as the game went along. The Eagles tackled pretty well, though, overall. TJ Edwards had a game, man. He is so sure of a tackle. Kaiser White was used as the extra box defender, take the cutbacks away, did a good job there. And the secondary, look, they gave up the one bad play where Bradbury got beat, clearly. Didn't have the safety was not around there where he should have been, or maybe that's whatever the coverage was. They should have made sure they had a safety over there.
Yeah.
But other than that, Rashid didn't crush him. In fact, he had a lot of possession catches, which was interesting. He typically doesn't do that because they took the balls away. So the defense, the only thing is they're playing very soft in the first series. That's why so many balls were complete. I think he was 7 for 7. Dalton early on.
Yeah, early. I mean, they were 11 for 11 combined later into the game, but yeah.
Yeah. First series, I know he was 7 for 7. So overall, look, it was a bad first series. They got overpowered, and then they adjusted. Look, after Sweat, they hung in there without Sweat, and they did a good job. Coaches, I thought, did a good job. Coaches will say it's never as bad as we think it is, and it's sometimes, and it wasn't. It was just a bad first series. Second series wasn't great, better, and then they really dominated. They pretty much shut them down after that.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And going back to that first series, the Saints had a 3rd and 4. That's when they got Juwan Johnson on Kaiser White. Okay, you put a little outside then in on him. He ran a nice route. I mean, that's, again, you're asking a linebacker to sort of cover a wide receiver. Juwan Johnson's built like a tight end. He's a converted wide receiver. That's not easy. Right. And then the 3rd and 3 to Olave, they lined up Olave in the slot. They rushed 6, so they did blitz. They didn't on the first one. They did on the second one. And basically Olave put an inside-out move on Marcus Epps. Now, that's going to happen. You get their best receiver in the slot against a safety who, by the way, as you mentioned, they were in a too high look, and then it was a disguise. At the last minute, you saw Epps try to come down. That's hard to cover Chris Olave. He's good for a reason. He's a first-round pick for a reason. But again, Gannon did blitz, so it's not like he showed the same look. And then I already mentioned that third down where he tried, to drop one guy, blitz another. So I just think what the Saints did formationally, Adam, they played 7-8 guys up front at times. They didn't run the ball explosively, but they were able to set up some of those 3rd downs where you don't know if they're going to run or pass. And that's tough for a defensive coordinator to put the right personnel out there all the time when you don't know what exactly they're going to do. But the adjustments after, I thought, were really well. And then just the overall play, I thought, was good. And we saw the front line just dominate.
Oh, they took
as
over.
The game went on. Yeah.
Yeah, BG looked good as usual. I love the way they angle him. The D line had a couple lineman issues when they gave some decent runs, but other than that, this is. I think people wanted to go after Gannon. Folks, it's a 4-quarter game, not one series. I get people are angry. Be angry if you want, but it's just misaligned.
Yeah,
where you're putting your it. I know you want every game to be perfect. Gannon's got to do a better job of adjusting. Because as one person said, that you do get concerned though in the playoffs. You don't have that time. You're not facing a Saints offense. You're going to be facing a much better coach team, better talented team, and you have to make sure you adjust quickly. So his assistants got to get in his ear and say, "Hey, this isn't working." Maybe they did. That's why they changed it up. And by the way, they did a good job of. They're doing a really good job of pre and post snap disguise this season. That's another thing that I posted last year where they wouldn't do it because they didn't trust Stephen Nelson.
Right.
They're really doing a good job with that. Would be pretty much it for my notes. But that's the other thing. They're doing a really good job, and that's part of why, by the way, they got Dalton to hold on to the football. It wasn't just their line. It's they're making them hold on to it, and the line gets there. That helps.
All right, we'll be back Friday morning with our podcast that will preview the Eagles versus the Giants with a lot on the line. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.